along today. My name is Anna Mary, I'm from North East Animal Rights. My talk today is about how to get active for the animals, how every vegan can get active and why they should as well. Okay? So a little bit about me first of all. I'm 57 years old. I tell people that I'm 77, 87 because obviously the vegan lifestyle is really good for you. I come from a pretty poor background. I turned vegetarian at the age of 14 when we were doing experiments in biology on the life cycle of animals, and we had fertilised eggs in incubators, and the incubators were turned off at certain times of their development. And I very quickly realised when we were opening the eggs up that these had been real life animals inside them, and I was absolutely horrified in that moment. Much to the horror of my family, I went vegetarian overnight. Obviously I had made the connection then of being vegan as well, you know, the links with egg industry and the dairy industry. But being vegetarian at the age of 14, so many years ago, 40 years ago, was quite a big thing then, because I was actually the only there was only me and another vegetarian that I knew, and we very much thought it was pretty odd. I went vegan 17, 18 years ago now, because I finally saw some footage. I mean, I had seen this footage over the years a few times, but I hadn't made the connection. So it was dairy footage. It was footage of dairy cows being slaughtered, and then I became aware of the cruelty in the dairy industry, and realised that I was still contributing to it, being a vegetarian. So in between those times, between being 14 and being vegan 17 years ago, I was still kind of convincing myself that being vegetarian was enough. My employment, I've been in education for over 30 years, and I was the last sort of 15 years of my career, I was in senior leadership. I was an assistant head in a secondary school just up the road, and I was looking at being able to retire a few years ago. A few things came together and I was able to leave there, and I did think that I wanted to go into doing this properly. I never thought it would be full-time, I always thought it would be part-time, and it actually ended up being a full-time role. It's pretty much, you know, kind of an obsession almost. My husband would say it's an obsession because it takes over your life. So in terms of my animal rights history, to go back to me being vegetarian at the age of 14, I didn't know, I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know how to do it. And obviously at that time there was no internet, there was no emails, no Facebook, social media, anything like that. So I did what everybody did at that time. We used letters and postcards, phone calls. So me as a 14-year-old, I was constantly phoning people. I was sending postcards with my home address on and letters, telling them how outraged I was. And the first one I did was the Pamplona bull run in Spain, where I was absolutely outraged at the fact that, I mean, this festival still goes on, that they are, you know, so cruel to animals, and they are, you know, and nobody seemed to be listening, but I needed to be doing something. I knew the letters were getting through because I all had my return addresses on them, so they weren't getting sent back to me. So I thought for that reason only I was going to keep on going. Now fast forward through, obviously I was kind of like being a teenager, continuing doing all of that sort of stuff. No real animal rights activist groups in my area. I became aware of, this was about 9 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, in South Shields where I live. There was a Winter Wonderland parade and had camels in, and I felt affronted and slighted by the fact that it was actually on my own doorstep. You know, this was actually happening right in front of my eyes, and I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know anybody who could help. So I started off with contacting the council, contacting my MP, the councillors. They were very, very much pro having the camels in. So I felt as if I was banging my head up against a brick wall. So I looked for other organisations in the area, and there was a group who were based in Newcastle, and they agreed that if I kind of like helped them and joined their group, that they would help with this campaign. So over a period of years, we did a number of things, and we eventually did get camels stopped. And that was one of our earliest, biggest successes, because it was a huge uphill struggle with that. But I stayed within that group for a number of years. I learned lots of things from them. I also learned a lot of things about the type of activism that I want to do and what I'm comfortable with. I also have a number of mental health issues as well. So I am bipolar, which my husband would say he kind of describes me as driven, and you know, obsession about things that I do, and that's kind of like part of the traits of being bipolar. But I can use this as a positive force because I think it gives me a lot of energy, and I put my energy into to being active for the animals as much as I can. But I have had a couple of breakdowns over the years, and I knew I was on the way to my third one, but that was at the time when I was working as assistant head, so I was doing 60-hour weeks there, and I was also the political agent for an MP, and I was doing animal rights in every bit of spare time I had, and knew something had to give because I wasn't going to cope. So I stepped back from the political part of it, and I'm still kind of like involved on the outskirts and local politics, but more kind of like favours for Green members and the MP who I was working with. But I'm not anywhere near as involved with it now. My life pretty much is animal rights. Now my group, but because I knew that I was wanting to do activism in a particular type of way, the group has been very much set up in like that, kind of like we use the definition of veganism, which most of you know the definition of veganism from the Vegan Society, but there was an amended one from with Ronnie Lee and Tony Harris extended it, where they said they think that vegans have an obligation to be active. It's not just about not doing something, so not eating food, not wearing leather, not wearing fur, not using cosmetics tested on animals. It's about doing something, and that is where that came in, and that's something which I think that we should do as vegans. It's always about doing something as much as you can. And our approach in our group, we have our logo is on these little cards here. We have like the dove, we have the colours of the vegan flag, so we've got the militant kind of like groups that kind of like sometimes people think of as activists. So we have the dove, the peaceful bird with his wings. I keep on saying arms when I was practicing, but wings around the world. And our logo is for the animals, for the planet, for us. For the animals first and foremost, for the planet, because if we look after the animals, the planet benefits as well, and because we do those two things, we all benefit. So it's always about the animals coming first. And then we are a very, very busy group. We do absolutely all sorts of different things, and it was kind of born from the start of the pandemic. The pandemic kind of pretty much kicked a lot of the things into touch which we wanted to do, because we weren't able to do outreach in Newcastle anymore. So we concentrated a lot on social media. So I set up loads of different accounts. We did. We've got Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and somebody's asking me, talk to me about this 5 years, 10 years ago. I would never have thought I would have been doing this much on social media, because actually I don't really like it, but it's a very, very useful tool for what we do. So we do, we kind of like run our accounts with it's a magazine format, and we do it. So like on a Monday we have a business post or a festival post. Tuesday we have our food reviews and product reviews. Wednesdays we have campaign updates. Thursdays we have our near the community post. Friday we have reviews and also reminding people what we're doing the weekend. And Saturdays we're either doing outreach or we're airing an interview. Sundays we do articles. Go on in here. So we do have a number of things that we try to. It's about trying to get people in on a number of angles. Somebody might be interested in the environment. Somebody might be interested in the health part of it. They'll come in for that reason, but they'll stay vegan for the animals. That's the really important thing. We also have a number of campaigns. So our campaigns are very important to us, and there's a lot of work goes into them behind the scenes. So we have one of them came out with the camel parade protest, because we ended up having a really volatile and competition relationship with the council. We ended up having quite a good one, and we worked with them to this day, and lots of different things that we do. So we ended up working on what's called an animal protection charter. They wanted to call it an animal welfare charter, but you'll know obviously welfare is a huge issue for vegans. We don't like the word welfare. So we agreed on a compromise, which was protection. So we now have the South Tyneside Animal Protection Charter in place, and that was adopted officially in January 2023, which means that there's lots of things that the council can't do or have to do differently now. And that again is a huge, very, very proud moment for us as a group to be able to do that. That's kind of also morphed into the Council's Animal Protection Charter. So around the UK, we are working with other groups and other councils to try and get them to adopt something similar in their boroughs as well. We have an Adopt Don't Shop campaign, trying to push people towards adopting from rescues rather than buying from breeders. We have Lottie's campaign, which is very important at the moment because it's about fireworks. Lottie lost her life because she was our rescue rabbit, because she was frightened to death from fireworks. All of my rescue rabbits and guineas at home at the moment are currently indoors. They hate being indoors, they want to be outside, but they all have to be brought in this time of year because there's so many people who just still don't get it. I'm not going to ramble on about fireworks, but that's just something you can it's just because it's obviously right in front of my mind at the moment. We also have a number of campaigns which have come off of offshoots from the Animal Protection Charter as well. So we have the Weed Killer campaign, which is where we ask the council to give us an area which doesn't have any chemicals put on, because we live right close to the river and we don't want the chemicals to go into water. And obviously dog walkers have issues with the chemicals as well. But also the impact on, on insects and bees and wasps and, and butterflies and things. So we put in the backbreaking work and the time to hand weed this area, and now the council have taken this area back from us and they're doing it with Stirling, which is far, far better. We also have netting campaigns and education programmes, and again this is kind of like come from observing what goes on around our borough. We've had some horrendous issues with birds getting trapped and killed and badly injured and disfigured in netting. So we work with the council and local businesses now to keep on looking at and checking and challenging people who put netting up. And we also have a girl education campaign and a girl shooting awareness campaign as well. So all of these things are kind of linked in with the charters. We also run our own festival, so the Tyneside Vegan and Music Festival, which is So we do this in May at Northumberland University, and we do this for obviously it helps us raise money for our group, but also it raises awareness for other vegan trainers. It raises awareness for vegan groups and activist groups as well, to get them more members. It also it supports live music as well. So it's a lot of things. It's kind of like making veganism accessible, like the friendly face of veganism. Come in and don't be worried about it. We're not extreme people. We are people who are trying to project peace and love and kindness to everyone, to all animals, human animals as well. We also have two other campaigns, which are the captive animal boycott and the captive animal boycott for Christmas. So obviously we are trying to stop animals in captivity. One of the successes we had was a Tynemouth market. We had an owl. We had owls on display in there, and after working with Freedom for Animals, the market decided they agreed to withdraw the permission for the guy there who had the owls to go there and display them, which was great. And obviously our most recent success was at Royal Keys. So they had an annual event where they had reindeer there all the time, and it was just horrendous. These reindeer coming in really close contact with humans. We were very, very stressed, and it was just awful to watch. We got a lot of undercover footage from there, and Freedom for Animals supported us and Animal Aid as well. And the new management, it was kind of really funny how it happened. They went into administration, and the people who took over said they were completely against it, so they stopped it straight away. I also write a column in our local paper, so the Shields Gazette and the Sun and Echo. So we do, it's not about kind of veganism in a column sort of thing. It's about discreet kind of veganism. It's not about bashing them over the head with veganism. It's about trying to make it relevant to them and relevant to the audience of the people who read the paper. We also do quite a lot of work in our community. So recognising that, a lot of people say that vegans only care about animals, but that's not true. I mean, some vegans do, but I care about all animals. So, I don't want to see humans suffering as well, particularly if there's something I can do to help. So we have an ongoing food bank, plant-based food bank donations, which we collect from members of my local church and members of the group and residents. They'll come and give us donations, and also things like cat litter, hay and straw for animals. So we take them along to our food bank, and they very much appreciate it. We also collect underwear, which is one which I just came across. It's like a totally random thing, but it's underwear which goes to a refuge in Edinburgh and in Africa. So again, it's kind of like spreading kind of like our dove wings, if you like, around a little bit, around a few more people. And our community work as well. I mentioned the weeding, but we also do litter picking. We do that twice a week, and that's not necessarily a vegan group. There are vegans in the group, but it's the wider community trying to, make the environment look nice, make it nice for the people who live in that area, make it nice for, make it safe for the animals, and also be the constant force, the constant presence in the neighbourhood about vegans and rights activists, because we have our caps on as well. People will stop us and ask what that means. So we do that as well, and again, it's kind of like showing people we do things for humans. I also work with Eco Church, who we're doing an application for a local church, and they are doing coming in, you're very welcome. We do We do, it's an application, it's kind of eco as it suggests, it's kind of based around environmental issues, but there is a tiny little bit about veganism within it. So I'm trying to get Eco Church to expand that, not just like a token vegan mention, but to expand it on actual, about, you know, what veganism actually means and how that can work in the church as well. Because I'm a Christian vegan, but being vegan on itself is confusing enough, is confrontational enough for some people. Being Christian on the other hand as well, it's like giving you 2 sticks to beat with. So, you know, it's not good. But again, like veganism, I do try to speak up and try to say it doesn't have to be like this in church, and it shouldn't be like that. People in churches should actually be much more open, you know, and unfortunately they're not always like that. So I've mentioned our logo and everything in our strapline. For joining our group, so our group, we have some fantastic people in, well, all of them, or not some of them, all of them are fantastic people in the group, and they all do something in the group. But we have, it's not a case of, you know, you can kind of see us at the store and you walk up and kind of like, oh, can I help, and start handing out leaflets. There is a process to go through, so we do have a vetting process, and we have obviously fine-tuned that over the years to make sure that the people we get in our group are a good fit for us, but also they know kind of what they're getting themselves in for. It's not just about, you know, the coolness of being in an animal rights group, or, you know, the reality is a lot of people think that being an animal rights activist is very, very, you know, very dangerous, very sexy, very whatever. It's not, it's very boring. The majority of it is very, very boring, okay? That's why we want to try to make sure we get the right people in. We do training as well, so we do, we currently do, as mandatory, we do sign language training for, because we have a member who's deaf, and we also try to make up different things that we do accessible. So we do sign language training for all of our members, and we're currently going through a few, some training with a few new members. And Laura has brought along, I've done like a kind of like a transcript of our session today, so other deaf members can read it rather than, you know, just be excluded from it. We also do have a buddy system for new members as well, for them to do outreach with. And we have training which kind of like comes up, you know, as we need it. I've got some de-escalation training planned for in the new year as well. Everybody in the group does something, so it's not just a group where you kind of like come and just tread water and I'm in a group sort of thing, yeah, great, love the social stuff. It's about doing something. And we try to be far away from the stereotypes as extreme anti-vegan as we possibly can. We do collaborate with a lot of people, and collaboration is really, really key for us. I would say that our group is quite a large group in terms of numbers. There's about 26, 27 members currently in our group, which is quite a lot for a very, very active group. Normally you're kind of like talking about 10 to a dozen people. Sometimes they're a lot less. So some groups you'll have maybe just one person doing absolutely everything. So I am very, very lucky that we have so many lovely people in our group. But it hasn't happened like that accident, because, you know, it's kind of like good people attract other good people as well and see what you're doing, and other people want to do stuff. But we do other things, so we collaborate with Pause for Thought. It was Rescue in Sunderland, some of us volunteer for them. We do rescues, some people work on site there as well. North East Animal Safe, we do vigils for them, and I'm the deputy organiser of them as well. But North East Animal Safe do the vigils at the Burden. And again, it's kind of like showing that we support this group, and also we support each other in this, you know, this awful kind of like thing that we have to do. We support and work with Viva. Viva, we've got a Viva stall downstairs there which we are running for them. Animal Aid, we work with as well quite a lot. I'm a school speaker for them. So if you want to talk to me about being a school speaker, we are desperate for school speakers in the North East. I am a member, and Laura's a member of Animal Rise in the North East as well. So we do things outside of here. And the reason why we do them outside is because obviously Nia has a particular kind of like mode of operating, which we don't do the loud shouty demos and everything like that, but it doesn't mean to say that other people in the group can't get that out of them in another way. And we also have, you know, we support all of our local monitors as well, so Northumberland Hunt Watch who are here today, we've got North East Hunt Monitors who are here today, and there's Teesside Anti-Blood Sports as well. And we work very closely with them, and we collaborate quite a lot. We have lots of messages go backwards, forwards, and we help each other with different rescues, different legislation, advice all the time. Sometimes it's just about offloading as well, because it can be very lonely, kind of like running a group. And last but not least, we also have to work very closely with the council as well. The council in Shields, it works really, really good. The council in Newcastle work well, but the police, no matter, I would say my opinion on the police has changed quite drastically over the last couple of years since I've done stuff with Animal Rise. And and I've seen obviously the laws change with public order bills coming and everything. However, probably my group work very well and are very supportive of the police, because we need them, and we have needed them, and we've had silly situations when we've done outreach, we have needed them to rely on, and we don't want to be two-faced and kind of like, well, I suppose in some degree we are being a little bit two-faced, but we don't want to be hostile to them when we're doing events and then say, oh, by the way, you need to help us. So we do have a good relationship with the local police. Okay. So I've mentioned a lot of things about how I'm active and how our group are active, but this is about how you can be active, right? So things that you need to consider before you can kind of go into activism. So you need to first of all think about how much time you've got. I'm very lucky because I can do this full time now, but when I was working 60-hour weeks, I literally had the weekends to do and I had no time for myself. So you've got to work out how much time you've got. You've obviously got to work out your commitments as well, so whether you've got working commitments, family commitments, animal commitments, caring commitments, whether you're caring for an elderly parent, something like that. Because what we don't want is, you don't want somebody joining a group and saying, yes, I've got all these ideas, I want to do all these things, and then once down the line, I can't do it, I'm sorry, I've got all these things which you knew about at the time. What we need is consistency. Consistency is our key, particularly when you're doing it by education. Education is the main way we do things. So, you can do things by demonstrations and protests, really good, shock value, getting press attention and everything, but when you do education, which is much slower, and you need people to be consistent to do that. You also need to consider your own health and your wellness as well. It could be that you're not in the right place to do that right now for your mental health, but you might be 6 months down the line, or that might change. You might need to take a little bit of time out, that's absolutely fine. Or you might be, you might not have very good mobility, but we have all sorts of different people in our group, and everybody can do something. It's everybody in our group counts. Everybody will do something. It might be somebody who does the technical stuff, it might be the health and safety stuff, support at the vigils. It might be somebody who does community stuff as well, or maybe somebody who does the food reviews. Somebody might do help with campaign work, but every single person in our group does something. Okay. The other thing as well is about stepping outside your comfort zone. So my comfort zone, I used to do assemblies in schools for the kids, but it was always about, my subject was always about animals. So I could always kind of like, no matter what subject I was given, I could always wrangle animals into it. And it's much easier talking to children who have to be there. But it is kind of difficult. I did get nervous. I used to get really, really nervous to the point that when I was doing, I used to have to do some health and safety training at the start of term for all of the staff, and I would make myself ill all through the 6 weeks holidays, knowing that I had to do that. So to get from that point to me standing talking to you today, it's kind of like me showing you how you can get outside your comfort zone. I do get nervous. I get really, really nervous all the time. And things that I never really thought I would be concerned about. Things like the fact that I've got a really strong accent, the fact that I talk really, really quickly, how I look, things that, like wrinkly neck, wrinkles on my face, grey hair, colour of my teeth, crooked teeth, all these sorts of things are much more in my face now when I'm looking at social media, when I'm doing interviews with people, things I had never ever considered before, but now I'm much more conscious of them, and I do give myself a hard time. And I would say when I started doing the videos, I was much more confident because I hadn't thought of those things. And now when I do the videos, I'm less confident because I'm much more aware of what I look like on screen. And it's
like teams at work, isn't it? Like you're in there, like that, and then you just like looking at your nose is like that. People looking at your nose like, sorry.
So all of these things are kind of things that you need to think about: your comfort zone, the time, your commitments, and all these things. And so let's talk about some ways in which you can help now. So starting off, I would say at the bottom in terms of like how much time you've got to spend. So petitions, right? Now petitions can be good if they're done correctly and they're used correctly. But I would always say that petitions should be done not as a standalone for a campaign, it should be used as a backup, okay? Because petitions, you have to spend an awful long time to be getting the number of signatures you need. On our store today, we've got 2 petitions. One's got 500,000 signatures, it's not my petition. Another one I've got is a Zoom one, which we've been supporting, and we probably need about 5,000 signatures, and we're not that far off there. But if you're doing petitions, I've done them the wrong way, and I'm now trying to do them the right way. So if you want a local decision overturned at the Camels, for example, you would look at a platform like Change or 38 Degrees, because they're really good for facilitating that sort of thing. You need to work out who the decision maker is as well, and make sure it's sent to that person. If you're doing something which is legislation change, you need to be doing a parliamentary petition. But those ones are difficult to set up, not impossible, but difficult to set up because it's a staged one. And you also have stages that you have to get 10,000 signatures before you even get an acknowledgement. Then you have to get 100,000 signatures before it goes to the committee. And then when you go to the committee, it still gets turned over. I mean, the firework one, which I've been involved with, has been the committee 3 times now, and they'll sit there and talk about it and they'll go, yeah, okay, fine, move on, we're not doing it, we're not changing. But it doesn't mean to say that you can't, because it's still bringing to the decision maker's attention these things are a problem. I would also say as well, do your research before you set one up. Make sure that there's not another petition similar to what you want to do, because all it does is just dilutes those petitions. It's better to put your signature and share that signature rather than do it yourself. Another very subtle way is clothing. So obviously I've got this cap on, so people will ask me occasionally, sometimes I think it's North East Against Racism because there's another group, but North East Animal Rights. I've got this one, and this is my favourite, very well-worn t-shirt, which is from Jan Garver, who's downstairs, and who I've just been talking to, who's going to do our festival t-shirts as well. But I like this message on here because it's not like a shouty one. It's a one where you can just kind of like subtly get the message in. But that's not to say like graphic messages don't work as well, because they do. I converted to veganism through graphic imagery. It's the kind of like knowing the audience, and knowing that if you have a t-shirt on, being able to have a discussion about it as well. And also things like if you're in a staff room, having a mug like that, with all of the stuff in the back of it. Animals don't do this. That's a really, really good conversation starter as well. This is a good one when I go to church and I do communion and a bend down. Have I got this on? So, and I didn't even realize, I wore them and I didn't even realise. And then when I went back to the seat, I had a little chuckle because I thought, everyone's seeing them. But also things like, I've got this little poppy thing on here today. So this little poppy, the purple poppy. A lot of people don't know what purple poppy means, so again, so it's a conversation starter to remind people to start it, what's the purple poppy for, talk about animals, and then, that in itself is activism. I've got my little vegan earrings in as well, so I'm kind of literally, you can see that, but that's a really, really good way of doing it. Challenging conversations as well, which is a really important thing, I think, for too long, and I've been guilty of this as well, because I haven't had the confidence to do it. You've got to challenge the conversation, you've got to challenge the norms now, because for so long, people who are not vegans have had, their kind of like take on normality. We don't think it's normal to eat animals, we think it's wrong to eat animals, so we need to be challenging, having conversations to change that around, and we're not going to do that through shrinking away. We need to be able to challenge it and have respectful conversations, polite conversations, with humour, with facts, kind of like being able to show off the vegan lingo, where do you get your protein from, where do you get this from, where do you get that, and just being a kind person, being that kind of, if you kind of like trying to imagine if you're not vegan, what would make you turn vegan, being that kind of person. Starting conversations in, if you're going out for works meals or works do's as well, starting conversations there, not being the person who kind of, somebody go, oh, you're vegan, just kind of like come and have the conversation with these people, and saying, would you like to try my food? Would you like to try, do you want to have a conversation about it? And being that person about, again, it's about challenging the norm, making veganism the norm. That's what we should all be aiming for. Social media is a really, really good way of doing it. As much as I don't like social media, it is a really, really good way of getting your message across. I would say, don't get in arguments with Charles. It's absolutely pointless. It's a waste of energy. I've done it. I've wasted hours on it. I've got myself really, really angry about it. It's utterly pointless. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. So just move on. Just block them. Move on. Just don't do it. We've even got a post on a Friday now, which we call the Carapats of the Week. And I kind of did this because it's kind of like a bit of a rip-off from VFC, because they do a really good Clubwits. And I thought that they were absolutely hilarious. But also after interviewing David Rams and kind of like saying things Joey Carlstrong does about monetising, what Charles say, using it as kind of like a hook to get people talking. But that's what we do. So we put on every Friday some of the absolute classic comments we've had on the pages. And Jan from Jan Grava she's she always comes back with some cheeky comment to keep it going as well. But people are starting to watch out for them now, and it's about kind of like, it's not about kind of like being unkind and cruel to them, but it's just about kind of like taking the power back from the trolls, you know. The reason why I started doing that was because we were getting mercilessly trolled. Last year I had an absolutely horrendous time, and it really was affecting my mental health. To the point that I was literally going to bed, taking trolls off, getting up in the morning, taking trolls off, and it was just awful, and I couldn't take the post down because it was a festival advert, and it was just absolutely relentless, and I felt so upset, and I found that I was spending more time dealing with trolls rather than dealing with the actual event I was running. Now, the Liberation Pledge, this is another way you can be active. For those of you who don't know what it is, you'll wear a fork as a symbol, and it means that you are not going to sit down with people who eat animals, which is good if you want to say to your family or your friends, this is my line in the sand, I'm not going to do this anymore. You know, if you want to eat animals, do it away from me. If you, you know, I'm only going to eat food with other vegans. Now, I'd say there's pros and cons of that, because obviously the pro of that is it's your mental health. You're not going to be sitting surrounded by the smells of dead animals. The con part of it is you're automatically closing down the conversations you may have had with people. So that's why I've never done it, because I have had lots of conversations when I've been eating food. As much as I don't like sitting having a conversation with somebody who's eating a chicken, but I will have that conversation because it's a good way of doing it. Memes is another good way of communicating, you know, animal rights stuff. You can kind of create. If you've got any sort of like creativity skills, it's a really good way of getting things out along social media, and you know, someone will pick it up and just share the hell out of it, and then that little sort of message which you spent half an hour creating is all over social media. Now going to the other extremes, so kind of like going from the stuff that you do in the house, things like demos and protests and direct action. Demos and protests and direct action for that matter, I would always say research really well. Why are you doing it? Who the people are you doing it with? You know, there's been protests that I've been asked to go along to where, you know, it's a speciesist one where it's about one particular animal, so it could be about a dog, it could be about a dolphin, which is great, but then you have people walking alongside you who are potentially eating ham sandwiches, and that's a huge issue in itself. That's all right if you can cope with that. Some people can't, but you need to be aware of what you're kind of like walking into. That's one of the reasons why Animal Horizon, I don't know if you're aware of the Animal Rights March in London. They were originally organising the march, and then they opened it up to groups for like nature groups, and then that brought in a lot of people who were obviously not vegans, not activists, and it all kicked off, which is why they ended up stepping back from it, and they went back to the Animal Rights March. Direct action. And demos as well. I mean, we've done demos. I've done demos at Camp Eagle. I've done demos all different places, and they're really good. You can stand there holding a placard, you know, if that's all you want to do, because it is quite confrontational doing that. You could stand there holding a big banner. You could walk holding a banner. You could be on a megaphone. All of these things, I would say, again, do your research and just be aware of what you're getting yourself in for. I'm not trying to dissuade you from doing them, because all of these things do work. Doing things, you know, direct action will now always come with the risk of arrest. Okay, so you've got to be aware of anything you do. You've seen the A.D. Harvey action, which Animal Justice Project did. Although the people on the ground were supposed to be non-arrestables, some of them did get arrested. The Animal Horizon event I did, I was supposed to be a non-arrestable attendee. It didn't work out like that. You know, it changed very quickly, and it changes. You know, in the middle of action, things change so quickly. So you've always got to go with these events with the fact that you may get arrested, and that's all very well. You know, if you're okay with it, but you've also got to remember, you know, any things like the DBS clearances, your career prospects, your family, your friends, anything in the press. And again, you might be okay with that, but just go into it with your eyes open. You can donate. You know, donate to small groups like us. You can also donate to charities. Again, research the charities, because Animal Aid has a long list of victims of charities where these charities test on animals, or they've used animals in a bad way within their charitable work. So make sure that your money is being used for animal rights, not animal welfare, or you know, hurting animals to help humans. And our charities, which we support quite a lot, we support Pigs in the Wood. Because they are a vegan pig sanctuary. We support Millingtons, who are absolutely amazing. They are a vegan animal sanctuary down in Wakefield. and we support Animals Asia, and Animals Asia VJ is downstairs as well, so she's a vegan and it's a vegan organisation. She does absolutely mounds and mounds of work, and she's just like, you know, I said the person of this group of one person, that's her. She runs the whole North East group, and it's just essentially her. So you know, they're always after money. But then you've got the bigger charities as well, like Animal Aid, Viva, you know, Animal Rise, and all these groups, they do need money, but just be aware of where your money could be going to. You can also, you know, more locally, if you have issues, you know, obviously next year there's going to be an election, there's going to be a number of local elections as well, so make sure your councillors are working for your vote. You know, ask them about animal rights, don't ask them about welfare, ask them about animal rights, and where certain issues, you know, local issues fit in, how you, if your MP comes knock on your door, if you get any phone calls, what is your MP doing for animal rights? And there's many things they can be doing. I mean, look at all the legislation which got rolled back when Sunak got in, all the things which is going back, you know, foie gras and the live exports, all these things are really important, so we need to make sure that the MP is going to be doing the right thing by you, and you get your, for you to give them your vote. You can also write the press. Again, it's about keeping veganism in the mainstream, so having, you know, I saw one from somebody who followed each other on Facebook, Linda Kennard, a couple of weeks ago in the iPaper, and it was just about plant-based food. She said she had written a much longer letter, but the fact that that was actually in a mainstream paper was really good, and it's again, it's about keeping the conversation going all the time. When you're selling things out, like on social media, and you're on, and you do letters and things, be careful of the language you're using as well. You know, you don't want to trigger people. It's not about diluting the language. It is about using the correct terms of brutality, which has happened to those animals. It's not about dressing it up, but be aware of the people who you're talking to, because they may have had similar experiences as a human. You know, there are many people who have had awful things happen to them as a female, and these things happen to female animals. So just be aware of the audience you're talking to, and make sure that you're not going to trigger someone, because that's just going to, apart from the fact it's awful for that person, you're just not going to get your message through at all. Don't use welfarist language or speciesist language. Don't call animals it. You know, if you're not sure, call them they. He or she, but they, there's a good role for everyone. And don't use welfarist language. It's not about having better, you know, slightly longer lives, nicer grass, bigger cages. It's about having no cages. It's about animals not being used at all. And again, there's a conversation in the movement now about the use of animal abuse as a term, animal exploitation. It's now being shortened just to animal use. We shouldn't be using animals full stop. So don't abuse animals, but actually just don't use them. Yeah. So you could join a group as well, but you know, groups are always after new members, the right members, but do your homework on the group. Make sure that you know when you're talking to them. I think I'm meeting someone here today to do like a kind of initial vetting. You know, look at the time you've got, the skills you've got, the motivation, you know, why you're doing it. And make sure that the group is a good fit for you. You know, it's a two-way process. It's not about, you know, they might say, yes, we're desperate to have you, but you might think, no, you're not for me, sort of thing. Okay. You could set up your own group. If you look around and you think, I want to do something totally different, there's a gap in the market in the animal rights movement, I want to do something totally different to you, set up a group. The advice I would say is, though, you need to have a hell of a lot of time. Right? It's not just, it'll never be, no matter how you say, I'm going to do this at the weekend, believe me, you get phone calls, messages, you know, pretty much non-stop, you know, last thing at night, first thing in the morning, all the weekends, you know, and you know, it really does eat into any sort of like life you have. Having said that, I absolutely love it, and I feel really privileged to be able to do it. And I work with some brilliant people, not just in my group, but also in other organisations as well. But it is a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of expense. You know, you could just have a little table and turn up in Newcastle and have a few leaflets, but somebody's got to pay for the table, somebody's got to pay for the postage for the leaflets, you know, and then you think, I need to have a chair to sit down, I need to have banners and things, so it all starts to mount up. And the stress part of it as well is, I can't describe how much stress I have running this group. I mean, I love it, and I would never change it, but it's very, very stressful. And also I've mentioned about the trolls as well. The trolls take quite a toll on you if you let them get to you. So there's loads and loads of you know, in terms of what we do as our group, we do outreach, we do all these different things on social media. But I think don't ever underestimate the power of just being a constant presence in animal rights. It's not about being the most dramatic, the most kind of exciting, you know, the most kind of like shouty, loud, good kind of going. It's about being a constant presence. When we're in Newcastle, I know that there's people who come up because they know we're going to be there, you know. And you know, we never know that if we don't know how many people we've converted. We've got no idea. But we also don't know whether at the start of the journey or at the end of the journey. And if we get them at the end of their journey, or we talk to them and they keep on coming back at the start, and then eventually they turn, well, that's a huge win for us. And we're never going to know those. But you know, we know it does work, because we get more and more people now coming and saying, oh, you don't need to talk to us, we're already vegan. And you know, that never happened. When I was first vegan, that never happened. And I didn't know many vegans at all, and now I know absolutely loads outside of my group as well. Ronnie Lee, I don't know if you know who Ronnie Lee is, but Ronnie Lee is the co-founder of the Animal Liberation Front, and he was very famous or infamous in the 70s, and he spent time in jail for liberating animals from fair farms. I mentioned him at the start about the extended veganism definition as well, and he, when I interviewed him a couple of years ago, I asked him if he had any regrets, and he said his one regret is that he didn't do grassroots outreach much sooner, because although he was rescuing animals and it was very important for those particular animals, it wasn't, it didn't have the bigger impact, the wider impact, which education and outreach does have. So I felt quite heartened by that, because I was kind of at that point thinking, how do I know how successful we are, because we don't know. So finishing off, you'd be pleased to know. Finishing off, I mean, there's absolutely loads and loads of ways. I've touched on, I mean, maybe there's things which kind of like pop in your head there, where I have, you know, where I haven't mentioned them, but you've kind of like thought, oh, actually, maybe I could do this instead of doing that, or I could do this in a different way. But I would say, do it. Don't hesitate. If you're thinking about being active for animals, it's a really, really important thing, you know, because there's a lot of people speaking out for humans, and that's a good thing. There's less people speaking out for animals, and you know, animals always kind of like come to the bottom. You know, when all the conflicts which are going on around the world at the moment, Ukraine and Gaza and Israel, animals are always the ones at the bottom of the heap. You know, and we've always got to remember that they need us to speak up for them. You know, we don't speak their language, but we can see, you know, their sentience. We can see what, you know, that they're hurting, that they need help. So we should always do what we can. And I'll do this. I know that when I die, whether it's tomorrow or whether it's 50 years time, I know that I'll have tried to make the world a better place. That's really what we should all be doing. And I know that you know, the 14-year-old raised a vegetarian kind of sending postcards off to the Pamplona mayor, ranting and raging about bulls and everything. I never would have thought I would have been standing here doing something like this, having doing a festival and sitting in stores doing a festival and talking to people. But I'm so glad that I've kind of like continued through the years and kept on doing things. So I'm hoping that some, you know, people in here and people who are watching on the video at home as well, it'll kind of like prick their, not so much prick their conscience, but kind of like give them a bit of incentive to do something. You know, to do something, because it really is as simple as making a decision. I'm going to do something, and then you need to find something. Okay. So I'm going to sign off now. So thank you very much for listening. And these are sponsored by if anybody wants them. You know, there's loads of animal rights stores here today. So go around and talk with them and see if you want to, you know, if you want to work with them or how you can help them. Please keep on supporting animals and being vegan and doing what you're doing. It really is important. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. And I'll be around. I'll hang around a little bit around here if anybody wants to ask any questions. But I'm also going to be around in the stall as well. And you'll probably come along and I'll be stuffing my face with a cake.
Something now, like. Thank you.